another day, another dollar. Yeah, happy to be here. We got a little bit of Boston behind me. It's
Okay.
yeah,
Right on, man. I like it. That's the one spot I haven't been to, major city up east, and I really want to get there and see what's up.
there's a lot. There's a lot more than sports. It's not just sports up here.
Oh yeah, no, I know that. That's for sure. Yeah, is Wally still up there?
Yeah. Wally's is actually just down the street. It, I had no idea how small that club actually is. It is really I don't know. It reminds me of a lot of old bars and little dive scenes I've seen. But gosh, they are busy. They have music every night
Yeah,
of the year, from what I understand.
it's iconic, that's for sure. I've
Yeah.
heard many a story about Wally's. Well, hey man, it's great to catch up with you with Buffalo Monroe and everything that's going on with you. So, before we get into your latest album, I want to know 4 years ago, this pandemic was raging. We didn't know how we were going to get out of it. How did you survive that time period? And how did it influence this album or change the way that you do things?
Well, it golly, there's so much to say about that. But I do know that during that time, we really dove in to making more music and improvising together. And Rachel and I, we're kind of the core of this band and write a lot of songs and we're both multi-instrumentalists. And during that time, we started doing more than just jamming and having fun in the moment, but actually recording what we are doing, even if it was just on our phone to have the idea for later. And this certainly wasn't my first rodeo in the band. This is probably like my 10th or 12th band. I'd have to count them. Because when you get involved with open mics and playing and subbing for people, it's like, oh, I subbed for that person. I don't know if that counts as being in the band yet.
Yeah.
But I played with a lot of different people and had some recordings and releases. But yeah, this time it was really during the pandemic that we generated a ton of demos, we could say. And and coincidentally, we got a chance to meet Bootsy Collins. It was over Zoom, but still we got to meet Bootsy Collins and Peppermint Patty and The Power of the One. That album had just come out, I think like October 2020. Um, and that we like lived and breathed that album. And then later being able to meet Bootsy, I think it just helped us kind of like channel our energy towards really going in the music direction and playing music and going with the power of the one, as Bootsy might say. And yeah, that that I guess, giving us that time to kind of be hermits, in a way permitted us to dive deeper into that whole musical terrain and exploring demos and really just like instead of just jamming, it's like, okay, well, let's build on what we did a few days ago and adding things to it and things like that. Because yeah, so often we're just content with just playing music and just
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sorry, I'm a little long-winded there, but there's so much more to say. um, but yeah, those years, from basically as soon as it hit, all the way through that next year or so, we really ended up making a lot of music.
Which is good. I mean, that during that time period, that was the key to it, kind of breaking things up. So on the latest album, you got Ron Carter. It's there's a lot going on this album. Talk to me about how this came together.
Oh goodness. So yeah, kind of building off of the last question there, we had made a whole bunch of music and we had these demos and we started releasing these demos in 2021 and we released a second batch in 2022. And with that, uh, we knew we needed percussion. We needed a drummer because we didn't have any percussion on our demos at all. So that was kind of first on our list of figuring out who was going to play. And I have lots of colleagues and friends across the states, but there's the whole question of getting in the studio and getting that professional recording, something that will be like up to grade with what we're hoping for a professionally recorded album and not the DIY demos that we had been making ourselves. And I had run sound before, front of house sound for different venues and big shows. So I have a little understanding of that, but not like professional mixing engineer level. So we knew we needed to get professional recordings, and drums are not easy. Um, so with that, it was almost like coincidence. We saw Basic Streams, Victor Wooten, Steve Bailey, Greg Bissonette. They happened to be playing in the Boston area. They're a little north of Boston on a Friday the 13th in 2022. We had just released our spring demo like about a month prior, and we got to see awesome, great, Victor Wooten with Greg Bissonette, Steve Bailey. This is amazing. And that night we got to meet Greg briefly, the drummer, and Greg's played with like all kinds of people: Maynard Ferguson, Satriani, Vi, uh, so many people. He plays with Ringo Starr, uh, has been for about 2 decades now. And anyways, we got to meet him there. And then later, I saw he had an interview that was online, a very recent interview that had come out. And he had mentioned, hey, if you want drum lessons or you want me to consider recording, feel free to send me an email. So we did that. I looked over at Rachel and was like, oh my gosh, if this works, we might have found, like, how cool would this be? Finding Greg as a drummer to help fill in the void that we had. And we sent him our demos at the time, and he was all in basically right away, and basically said like, sounds great. As soon as I'm off the road with Ringo, let's get in the studio. It's like, oh my gosh, just hearing that, uh, what a joy. But that really kicked things off, and we started recording with Greg. And with that, I reached out to Willie. I had known Willie for about 16 years now, and I reached out to him and just let him know about the project and that we were interested in getting some horns on there. And he was on board, and basically like, okay, let's find out when and where we can do this. And that's really where things kind of, I don't know, exponentially grew, because we ended up finding, okay, we're going to be able to. Willie's out of the Chicago area, and he's touring all the time. He's on the West Coast a lot, but he had to take a train and to meet with us. And we ended up recording in upstate New York with one of his friends, Ross Rice, one of the key players in the band. He produced the album as well. And so we were able to record with Ross Rice in New York, which was nice because we're coming in from Boston, Willie's coming in from Chicago, kind of meet in the middle in a way. And I had proposed, okay, this is great. We got some of your friends that are also amazing musicians involved with this already. Um, what do you say we just jam and record it just to document the experience? I know we're going to be in the studio to record songs with you. We have over a dozen songs we would like to record with Willie. Um, and so, yeah, I proposed, well, how about we jam? I'd love to jam and see what happens. And one thing led to another, and Vinny Amico turned out to be available that day and drove in to record, and Vinny Amico from the band Mo. And wow, what a dream. So there we were that day, where we had originally, the original intent, just trying to get some horns on some of our tracks that we've been putting together. And then it turned into this whole thing where we had this recording session that was just pure improv, um, that led into our work with Willie. And that really is a big chunk of the album. What came out of that recording session is about 5 of the 9 songs. Yeah, it's 5 of the 9 songs. And a few of those were done in one take. It was wild. Um, and yeah, so it snowballed. It snowballed from our demos, and then we got Greg Bissonette involved, and then we got Willie tracked, and with Willie in the mix, we pulled in Ross Rice and Vinny Amico. And then as we were working on all of that, um, we already were in contact with Ron Carter and the maestro and his team, and we had the wheels turning for what's the possibility of getting the maestro in the studio. I figure it's going to be 5 years to be like a waiting list, and it we didn't have to wait 5 years. It was within months of when we basically started that conversation that we were able to get into the studio. And that also just kind of like serendipity how it happened, recording with the maestro in Brooklyn, and everybody that was available to come into that. And uh, yeah, yeah, that was wild. And those are the only songs that I don't play bass on the album is when the maestro's in there. It's like, I think we're good.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about your musical journey. You've been in a lot of bands that's
Mhm.
culminated into Buffalo Monroe. Talk to me a little bit about where you were born and raised and how the musical and jazz and fusion bug got in you.
Oh goodness. Well, so much to say here because I've moved, I don't know, 16 or 17 times now in my life. But I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas, and lived for the most part the first 10 years of my life around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I've lived in the Indiana area for a while. That's where I spent most of my life. And for a hot minute, I was in Seattle during high school. That was kind of my study abroad program. But yeah, kind of all over the place in terms of like, what do you claim as a hometown? It's like, well, I got a lot of hometowns, but been living in Boston for the better part of a decade now. And as far as like the musical experiences and the musical journey, I started playing piano when I was young. I was like begging my parents for a keyboard when I was about 5 years old, and I was so happy to get a nice little electric keyboard when I was a kiddo and started getting lessons. And we moved a lot, so I wasn't able to like stick with one teacher. I was always changing teachers just about every year or so. But I'm happy I was able to get lessons, and honestly, like happy I was able to get lessons from a lot of different people because so many different styles. But I didn't start playing the strings until I was 15. I was a teenager. I started playing guitar, um, and didn't start playing bass until later. Um, and and part of that was because not as many people play bass as guitar, at least where I was at. So it was an opportunity to, hey, we on one hand, it's like we could use a solid bass player, and yeah, on the other hand, it's also like getting into the groove and seeing how versatile the bass guitar is. Really led me into to exploring that, and finding out about cats like Victor Wooten and Les Claypool, and but it was Flea that really got me into the bass. Like from when I was a little kid, seeing the Chili Peppers music videos, um, Flea always stuck out to me as sonically and visually, wow. What an amazing player. But yeah, getting more and more into music as I was growing and learning more. Yeah, cats like Stanley Clarke, Victor Wooten, Louis Johnson, of course, James Jamerson, and digging back, into Mingus and Mr. PC, Paul Chambers, and Ron Carter, and then so yeah, that's a bit of like my musical background before I started getting really into bands and playing live scenes and live shows. And I was playing in kind of a funk rock band, kind of Chili Peppers-esque, kind of Chili Peppers, Radiohead sounding. And then I got looped in. I got asked to play bass for a jazz band that was pretty popular, and people, there were a lot of students from the university I was at that were in it, and people were graduating, so they needed some new blood. And I got roped into that. I was very happy to do that, and that's where I really started diving in to fusion and um, realizing that so many songs that I've been digging as a kid turned out to be Ron Carter on the bass line, like Cantaloupe Island, for instance. It's like I knew that as Cantaloupe. One of the remixes done later that I was really digging, and then found out,
Yeah.
wow, that was Ron Carter. I've been like dancing to this for about as long as I can remember. And so yeah, I've gone through a lot of journeys with bands, and kind of having residency deals with open mics and stuff like that. There's a lot of invitations to substitute or help start bands with folks. And I love rock and funk and fusion and jazz and blues. Oh gosh, blues forever. So much to be said, and so many genres. But yeah, reggae, metal. basically you name it, folk bands. I've played in a lot of different styles, uh, a lot of different kinds of groups. Some of them were more successful than others. Like I've had the experience of having endorsement deals with one of the bands I was in, and that was really nice. And touring and things like that, but nothing to where people were able to like quit their jobs. But at least live the scene and the dream. But I will say a lot of musicians I know are able to just be musicians. They
Yeah.
just might be busy with giving lessons whenever gigs are in downtime and things like that. But yeah, it's been a long journey here, and we have a lot of different music in Buffalo Monroe, and a lot of it is this jazz funk fusion kind of feel. And for this album, we really wanted to put together the most cohesive story, the most cohesive uh, collection of work to have a nice sequence and yeah, tell a story in the music, and also not scare the audience with like a distorted electric guitar. Oh goodness.
Yeah. So why does Buffalo Monroe work? Why does the band work so well?
Well, I think a lot of it is I know we have members that are like the glue that keeps it together, and it's the core of it really starts with Rachel and me, aka Bella and Bo Monroe, and and yeah, you could say we're really like the driving force, and with that though, we have Willie and Ross, and they also produced the album with us, and yeah, without them, oh my gosh, that it would be a much different picture that we're working with. But yeah, I know Willie is really, really helpful for helping keep the project moving and within reason, and because we don't have like an official manager or agent, so we're kind of within the band, we're helping each other keep things moving forward, and so yeah, I know a lot of it kind of goes around what we're able to do in the time that we have, and staying on task with that. But I know like part of I think what makes it work is that I didn't think like when Rachel and I were starting this band, I was after being through so many groups, I was thinking like, I've made a lot of music and I've seen a lot of it kind of go with the wind. We played some shows, and the people that were able to be there live in that moment, they're the only people that ever got to experience some of these songs because we never got into the studio. People moved away, this, that, or the other happened. So I was thinking with this project, let's go ahead and record right away. Let's get our ideas down and record them, and and we can do shows and we can go out and do things, but I'd really like to document and artifact what we have done together. And I think that's part of what helps drive the band, even if everybody's so busy, because we have, I mean, Greg Bissonet's in LA, Vinny's in New York when he's not touring, and Willie's in the Chicago area when he's not touring, and Ross, similar situation, like we're all over the place, coast to coast. And of course Ron Carter down in New York City when he's not touring. So yeah, everybody's spread all over the place. Some people are much more involved, like thinking about live shows and things like that. Um, but we have a rotating cast of characters, and I think that, in talking out loud, thinking out loud with that question, that us focusing on recording and let's get these ideas together and put in a package and able to share with people so that we're not restricted or hindered in any way by the barrier that we might encounter with trying to get everybody together for a show. It's like, okay, we're spread coast to coast. Would it make the most sense to let's just go to Chicago? Let's just meet in the middle,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So, but yeah, there's a lot of passion and drive within the band, and I'd say with like Willie helping keep everything aligned. It really helps drive and push us forward instead of just like focusing on recording. Because I think that Rachel and I can kind of get stuck in that, like we're in this like kind of songwriter producer mode of like, oh yeah, let's keep on creating. Oh, you know that I have a cool idea. I have a cool idea for that chord progression, and we can kind of get stuck in the weeds in the creative process. Whenever it's like, oh, we got to focus on business. We got to get this stuff together for the album release and keep it going out instead of basically like staying in the lab and not publishing any of your work. Yeah, that's kind of where we can find ourselves without Willie helping us push it forward.
So if anyone wants to get the album in the proper format so that they can support you guys, find out about the band, when you guys are going to play live, where's the best place for them to go?
Okay, so buffalomonroe.com. That's kind of a one and done deal. You can find links to our various streaming platforms, and if people wanted to listen online or get a physical copy of the CD, they can go there. For shows that are coming up, we're going to have them posted there. We're having a fall tour. Things are still coming together for the exact dates for some of the venues, but it's going to be in the Northeast, spreading from basically Buffalo, New York, through Boston, and different spots along the way. But that's the basic trajectory for our fall tour. Looking like that's probably, as the dates are lining up, is going to be in December, possibly some spots in November along the way. But yeah, so we don't have anything set scheduled on the books for shows at the moment. We did have an opportunity for opening for Victor Wooten. That was nice. But yeah, so the one and done spot to find out all the info is buffalomonroe.com.
Excellent. Man, this has been great. Matt, thank you so much for opening up about the band and your history and music, and best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.